Hey everyone, Rob here from Octagon and welcome to this week's Divi UI challenge. Now, we did miss last week's challenge and that's because we had a really big week. We launched a bit of a big redesign and rebuild of our site, and also we were involved in Elegant Themes Black Friday giveaway. So it was pretty busy for us, but never fear, we are back this week with another challenge. And what you see on your screen right now is what we'll be designing and building. And if I was to sum up what this represents, it would probably be the Ungrid. Now, if the term grid, if you're familiar with web design and development, represents how you typically structure web pages. And if you're using the Divi Builder, you'd be familiar with concepts like sections, rows, and columns. And that's sort of what the grid represents. The thing is that what you see on the screen right now has got all these sort of overlapping components, like our images are spilling from one sort of row into another. Things don't quite line up, and sometimes that's really good. It gives you the chance to do something that is different and sort of breaks the standard flow of what you would typically find on a web page. And sometimes it works, sometimes it looks terrible, but when it works, it can look good. So we sort of did a little bit of this sort of thing on our most recent layout pack, which we released just last week, called Travel Bug. So if you're an Octagon subscriber, make sure you check your inbox because it will be in there for you. But yeah, I want to show you how we sort of did a little bit of this. So largely this is about these overlapping and unaligning components. Also, we're going to cover a couple of extra little tricks, including these little corner border effects that you can see here on this text module and also on this image module right here. So there's a few extra things we're going to dive into on the CSS side. So let's get straight into it. Where are we? Here we go. Okay, so I've just got a new page. I've called it Ungrid. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new section. And it's going to be a specialty section, which are always fun to work with. A little bit different. And we're going to use this one here. Let me just get rid of that. I am going to remove this default section it gives us. So when you're working with the specialty sections, it's always a little bit different, but follow along and hopefully it makes sense. So first thing we're going to add is a text module. And I'm just going to grab a bit of good old lorem ipsum. And I'm just going to paste in there. It should be fine. Cool. Didn't bring over any weird formatting. Oops. Copy this first couple of words, and we're going to make that our heading. So let's leave that as default for now. Now we're going to add an image module underneath our text module. And it's going to be nice and easy for me because I already have these in my media library. So all the images I'm working with are pretty much square, so equal height to width. But obviously with your own, you just play and find what works. Now I am going to apply a little bit of custom CSS just to create some shadow, and that's because I'm often working with shadow, but especially because we're doing these overlapping elements, the shadow just helps it give that sort of stacked effect. So this is that great little CSS generator site. So we've got horizontal length 10, vertical length 10 is good. I think I did this before, so it's about right. Blur radius 60, opacity 0.3, perfect. As always, you'd do that to suit yourself. So I've just copied that code and I'm going to bring it over onto the image module, image settings, CSS, the main element field, paste that in there. Cool, so let's grab that image module and copy it. So copy module. Over here, in our specialty section, we have to add a row first. And we're going to do that one. Single column row, and because I've copied the module, I can just go paste module. Great. Now underneath that, we're going to add another row, 2 columns, don't need that, and paste the module again. So you can start to see, or you can see the components that we're working with anyway. Let's just get our correct images in here. So I'm just going to get back to my media library, and it's that one. And this one is the beach one. Great. All right, so we've got our components. Currently, you can see the workings of that grid that I talked about. Our columns, or our gutters between our columns are consistent, everything's lined up, and that's nice, but we want to break the rules a little bit with this one. So, first of all, let's go to the settings for our first image. We go design. We're going to be using margin to achieve this. There are a couple of ways, but margin typically is the easiest and most reliable way. So for our left-hand margin, we're just going to go 60 pixels. See, that creates this space here. So between that line there and the edge of the column, edge of the image, I should say, and edge of the column, there's about 60 pixels. And on the right, we're going to go minus 60 pixels, which brings it over the gutter. Which is good. On this one, we are going to go left hand minus 20 pixels, and right we're going to just go 60 like that. This one, little one down the bottom. What am I doing? Design tab. Custom margin left minus 60. May even a touch more. That looks pretty good. What do we have on the other one? Something close to that. Maybe even exactly that. Great. Last thing I'm going to do just directly to the images in terms of basic settings is I'm going to just change the animation direction on these images so that when the page loads, they all come flying in from different directions, which is cool. Let's have a look what that looks like if I refresh. This is our original one. Very cool. All right, so that's and it's simple as that. And for a pretty cool effect sometimes, it's not that difficult. The only other thing I'd say is that when you're doing your margin settings on your images, is that you want to do them separately for desktop, tablet, and smartphone. Now, I won't do that here. But it's important to do that because when you're playing with margins, especially on the small screen sizes, they start to fall off the edges of the screen. So it's important to do that for all your different screen sizes. All right, so that looks pretty nifty. Now let's look at the little corner effects that we've got going on here. First of all, I'm just going to get my text sorted out. Now I do have a couple of colors I'm working with. One of them is this yellow. So if you go design, header, text color, yellow, and I think I had the font Lato, I think it was, and italic. And for the body font, text font, I should say, bump that up to 16 pixels. And the other thing I did, but I won't worry about it. We'll just leave it as that for now. Okay. So the corners. Let's do the corners. All right. So this is, you probably want to have an understanding, at least at a basic level, of CSS, because this may be a little confusing otherwise. I will walk you through it. But basically, we're going to be working with the before and after pseudo selectors for the elements that were, for the text element and the image element for where we're applying those corners. And we're going to be doing it like this. So I'm on the text one. Before, I'm in content. And between your two quotation marks is where you define your content. Like if I put hi, you'll actually see the word hi appear. But I actually want to create an empty element. So that's why there's nothing between those two quote marks. So content, that, display, block. Now I believe by default, display is inline or inline block for before and after pseudo elements. So we want to redefine that as block. I want to give it a position of absolute because I want to remove it from the standard flow of the page. I believe that's the correct terminology. Width of, let's go 60 pixels. Height of 80 pixels. Now, what I've created is there's an HTML element here now. You can't see it because there's nothing in it, but if I just go background color, red, there you go, you can see it sitting there. Obviously we're not going to make it red, but that just shows you that where it's sitting. So we can now go border left 2 pixels solid. I'm going to grab the blue. And just for simplicity, I'm going to copy and paste that border line, paste it, I'm going to go border top. There you go, so we can start to see it appearing there. Now what we do need to do, there's 2 more things we have to do. One, we have to add some padding to our text module. So 20, 20, 20. Actually, there's a couple of things we need to do. So let's just do 20 for now. So I forgot to say, with our before pseudo element, we have to tell the page exactly where we want it to sit. We want to sit it 0 pixels from the top of its parent container, and we want it to sit 0 pixels from the left of its parent container. There we go. And I believe we may just increase the padding from 20 to 40. Nice. So I'm just going to copy all of that and go down to our after element, paste it in there. What we're going to do, instead of border left and border top, we're going to go border right, border bottom. Now it looks like I'm adding styling to that same pseudo element, but I'm actually, it's a second one. Okay, let me undo that to help me illustrate that a little clearer. So, oops. So there we go. Just copy and paste it exactly as it was in the before element. And instead of top 0, we're going to go bottom. And instead of right, left, we're going to go right. So there we go. You can see we've actually got the second element here, and those 2 last lines have positioned it at the bottom right-hand corner of our parent element. And we're going to change where the borders are. So instead of border left, we're going to border right. And instead of border top, we're going to border bottom. Oops. Now I am just going to change the width and height just for the sake of it looking slightly different. All right, that looks very cool. Now I want to show you one thing. When you're absolutely positioning elements like we have done with these before and after pseudo elements, let me just save that. The parent element has to be relatively positioned. If it's not, it doesn't quite work. See, it's currently working in our visual builder, but I believe if we jump over to the actual page, you can see we've lost our bottom right hand corner pseudo element. Oh yeah, down there. It's down there for some reason. That's because the parent element is actually not, although it looks like it is in the builder, it's actually not positioned relatively. So we need to go back to our text settings, CSS, main element, position relative. Now that's just one of the things you learn about positioning, and yeah, eventually you remember, but for a long time you scratch your head when you come over things like this. So save that. And if we check it now, wait for that, there we go. It should, there we go. Now it's where we want it to be. Great, got it on the text. Let's put it on the image. So to speed things up, I'm going to copy and paste the CSS from the before element. And first of all, I'm going to change the border color from the blue to white, which I know is FFF, 3 Fs or 6 Fs, same thing. And also going to set it to 40 pixels from the top, so it sits inside it, and 40 pixels from the left. So if we copy all that down here and go bottom 40 pixels, right 40 pixels, border right, border bottom. I'm just repeating those changes we did on the text module. And once again, I'm just going to change up the size of those pseudo elements just so it looks kind of different. Very cool. I think that gives us everything we're going for. Let me just double check. Apart from some minor font weight differences, that looks pretty good. So let's check on the front end again. Refresh. There we go, caught out again by the position relative thing. So settings, CSS for the image, main element, we've got the shadow, just enter that down to a new line and go position, relative, refresh that, perfect. There we go. So that was fun. The CSS corners were definitely the trickiest part, but not difficult once you get your head around them. But the overlapping of content across different columns and the gutters between columns is actually quite simple once you get the hang of it. So I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope you learned something new. Please leave your thoughts and comments either under the video on YouTube or on the blog post on our website, because I'd love to have your feedback on this. But otherwise, I will see you next week. Have a good one.